there to everyone in the real estate realm. Welcome to the Game of Homes, where I, Mike Mills, your master of whispers, come to you each week with news from the Seven Kingdoms. I've been warning you for months and months now that winter is coming, and August 17th is finally here. This is the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast, market update for the week of August the 28th. And that'll be enough of the Game of Thrones references, at least for now. So winter's not here because it's 105 degrees where I am, and because August 17th came and went and no White Walkers have come to take your real estate livelihood. But we are officially now in the new era of real estate, and today we're going to talk all about it. I'll briefly highlight what the changes are just in case you've been sleeping under a rock and didn't know. But more than anything, today we're going to discuss the implication of these changes and how it could impact your business depending on the market, and what other companies are doing to adapt to this shift. So on today's episode, we're going to talk all about your money and your business and where it's all headed. Again, I'm your host, Mike Mills, a North Texas mortgage banker with Geneva Financial. And when I'm not here sorting through market chaos with you, I'm helping people all over the country find the perfect home loan to suit their needs. We do them all: FHA, VA, conventional, rehab, HELOCs, DSCRs, bridge loans, construction, and on and on and on. So if you have or need a house, we can find the loan just for you. So just give me a call if you or your clients need someone to show you how to navigate the loan process. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Okay, now that my personal commercial's out of the way, what is on the docket for today's episode? Well, to lead things off, we're going to do just a quick breakdown of the NAR compensation changes, just so everyone is on the same page with the new rules that took effect on August 17th. Then sliding into the number 2 spot, we'll discuss mortgage rates, where they're at, where they're headed, but also how these changing rates combined with the new compensation rules could impact buyer demand. After that, we're going to touch on some national inventory numbers. Are we officially in a buyer's market now? Or is the rate of new listings starting to slow as we move into the fall? And if the market is tilting more towards buyers, how could the new rules affect buyer agents? Then I've got a few quick hits related to how companies are adapting to these new changes. And to close the show out today, I'm going to give you the 10 steps to the perfect home purchase process for buyers in this new era of real estate. So stick around for the playbook. Now, quick ask before we jump into the good stuff. If something on today's episode sparks an idea, teaches you something new, or just gives you a laugh, spread the love. Maybe it's with a colleague, a friend, or that person who's always asking you about the market. And also, don't forget, if you or someone you know need mortgage advice, I'm your guy. This podcast is a fun gig, but getting people into the right home loan, that's where I'm all business. So share the wealth and let's keep building this community together. All right, let's kick things off with a quick rundown of the new NAR compensation rule changes that went into effect on August the 17th. Now, I know many of you out there have been tracking these developments closely, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page, let's break down exactly what changed. First up, if you're working with buyers, things are going to be a little bit different now. From here on out, you must have a written buyer representation agreement in place before you show a home. No exceptions. That agreement needs to state the following. Number 1, your compensation. You've got to disclose exactly how much that you're earning, whether it's a flat fee, a percentage of the sales price, or an hourly rate. This is all about transparency. So no more vague terms like whatever the seller offers. You need to put that number down in black and white before the first tour takes place. Number 2, compensation limits. The agreement has to spell out that you won't be receiving more compensation than's written in the contract. This is key because it sets clear expectations and ensures everyone's on the same page, buyers, sellers, and agents alike. And number 3, negotiability of fees. There's also a required statement in the agreement that says commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable, which we all know that they are. But it's important to remind your clients that they have the power to discuss and negotiate fees with you. All right, next let's talk about the MLS. Now, if you've been used to advertising cooperative compensation on the MLS, well, those days are over, of course. Cooperative compensation meaning the commissions offered to the buyer's agent from the seller. These can no longer be advertised on the MLS platform itself. However, sellers can still offer that compensation in other ways off the MLS, like through direct communications, your website right now perhaps, or even via text message. The key takeaway here is that cooperative compensation is still in play. It just has to be marketed a little bit differently now. But be very careful with this. Right now, lots of folks are watching, and promoting this a little too boldly or making it a little too blatant might bring heat on you that you really don't want right now. So just be smart. Also, sellers can still offer concessions on the MLS. This might look like a credit to cover closing costs, interest rate buydowns, or a similar buyer benefit. And the important part, that concessions can be used to help pay the buyer's agent. But this is a conversation that you will need to have with your clients before writing your offer, especially as to who that money in the interested party contributions box goes to. But again, this will now be in the public comment section of the listing rather than the MLS cooperative compensation field. Finally, there's a new rule for your listing agreements and buyer representation agreements. You must now include the same conspicuous statement about commissions being negotiable and not set by law in every agreement you sign. It's all about full transparency, making sure that your clients know that there's room for discussion when it comes to fees. So, in a nutshell, we are seeing a major shift towards transparency and clear communication with buyers and sellers about compensation. So the days of fuzzy commission structures are gone. Now it's all about clarity, which ultimately can help build stronger, more trusting relationships with your clients. And as we all adjust to these new rules, it's going to be crucial to stay on top of your paperwork and make sure your agreements reflect these changes accurately. All right, so that's a quick rundown of the rule changes. If you've got any questions, make sure you're checking in with your broker or legal advisor to make sure that you're handling these updates correctly in your business. Okay, next up, we're going to dive into mortgage rates, where they're at, where they're headed, and how they could interact with these new compensation rules to affect buyer demand. So let's dive into that question that never gets old in this business. Hey, Mike, what are the rates? Well, according to Mortgage News Daily, as of August 28th, 2024, the average 30-year fixed conventional mortgage rate is about 6.37%. The average 30-year FHA rate is about 5.75%. The average 30-year VA rate is about 5.74%. And the average 15-year conventional rate is about 5.92%. And the average jumbo rate is around 6.60%. Look at that. Over half of those numbers are all starting with a 5. So we're moving in the right direction. Now, rates have been cruising in neutral for just a bit, but last week, Jerome Powell dropped some big news at the Fed's Jackson Hole conference. He signaled that the Fed is ready to start cutting rates and shifting gears from fighting inflation to saving the job market. And the news of this caused a big rally in the bond market last Friday, helping bring mortgage rates down further and climbing up above those lows established in the previous week. Now, analysts widely expect the Fed to begin cutting rates at its September 17th meeting, with the central bank likely to start with a 1/4 percentage point cut. And some have even speculated a possible 0.5 percentage point cut in September. Now, with 3 more Fed meetings left this year, many are speculating that we could see up to a full point shaved off by the time we ring in 2025. But remember, as loyal listeners of this podcast know, Fed cuts don't directly impact mortgage rates, but they sure do set the stage for rates to slide down as the economy begins to soften. Could we unwrap a nice 30-year conventional rate with a 5 in front of it by Christmas? Well, it's certainly on my wish list for Santa. But what do you think? Where do you see rates landing by the end of 2024? Hit me up with your predictions. Okay, now what does all this mean for buyers and your commissions? Well, my personal expectation is that we're going to see a continued low volume purchase market for the remainder of 2024. Rates are definitely moving in the right direction, but I'm expecting a relatively slow purchase market to stick around through the rest of this year. Sure, rates are on the right track, but with economic uncertainty sneaking in and a heated presidential election season coming up, plenty of folks are fine clinging to their cozy little 3% rates and staying put, at least until the dust settles. So if you can find a buyer, which is easier said than done these days, sellers are typically happy to pay your commission right now. Because if they're selling right now, it's out of necessity and not curiosity. And this often means better deals for the buyers that you bring in. So for the remainder of this year, I don't see much changing in terms of buyer agents getting their commission paid by the sellers. Now, if rates keep dropping and listings start stacking up, we might start to see a shift in 2025 as far as demand is concerned. The spring could bring a rush of transactions as buyers gain more affordability and sellers lower their expectations. But if demand does increase, but inventory doesn't continue to climb as well, then more competition for homes could make buyer agent commissions harder to come by. Winter might be a bit of a grind this year, but hang tight. Spring is when the housing market should really start to bloom. Okay, let's talk inventory. Is it piling up like it did last year, or are we starting to see a slowdown? Let's dig into a little bit of data. So last year, we didn't hit the peak of inventory until late November for most parts of the country. This year, though, things are playing out just a little bit differently. Why, you ask? Well, first off, this time last year, interest rates were spiking faster than Dogecoin after an Elon Musk tweet. But now they're on a little bit of a downward slope, and it's making the market a bit friendlier for potential buyers. We're not exactly drowning in transactions, but the demand is relatively steady compared to last year. At the same time, though, more homeowners are deciding to pull their listings off the market and wait until the low demand season passes, possibly holding off until next year. Because right now we're seeing close to 35,000 listing withdrawals a week compared to about 25,000 per week this same time last year. And with low financing costs and manageable payments right now, many homeowners are thinking, why should I list if I don't have to? Now, at the moment, there are about 704,000 single family homes sitting unsold on the market. Just a slight uptick from last week, but nothing to write home about. Nationally, we haven't hit the peak of inventory just yet, but it is slowing down, and I would expect the peak to hit in the next few months. Now, on the buying side, there were close to 65,000 new single-family contracts pending, a slight decrease from last week, but a few percentage points higher than this time last year. So it is nice to see a few more sales, but we're not exactly on fire here. There are now 368,000 single-family homes with pending sales, which is up 2% from last year, but basically has just been holding steady. Now, NAR reports that national sales increased by 1.3% month over month to an annual pace of about 3.95 million transactions in July of 2024. And that's for the whole year, the pace that they're trying to set. And while that is a little bit of an uptick from the first quarter, it's still a 2.5% drop from last year. And remember, 2023 was the slowest year for existing home sales in 30 years. So we're not exactly breaking records here, at least not any good ones. The median price of homes on the market is holding at about $449,000, which is just a smidgen lower than last week and unchanged from last year. Now, we have passed the seasonal peak in pricing, which is normal this time of year. So the big question now is whether sellers will get more aggressive with discounts this fall or just pull their listings and wait until next year. And overall, new listings are priced just shy of about $400,000, a tiny bit higher than last year, though that margin is starting to shrink. Homes going under contract this week are priced at about $385,000, which is down 2.5% from last week, but still about 4% higher than we were a year ago. And currently, about 40% of homes on the market have seen a price cut from their original list price. And as inventory starts to decline for the year, we should see the percentage of price cuts start to drop as well. But again, this is following a normal seasonal trend. You see, withdrawals typically increase in the fourth quarter if the home isn't sold by then. Many sellers are going to pull their listings off the market for the holidays. So we're near the seasonal peak in price reductions, unless, of course, we see another mortgage rate spike like we did the last 2 Septembers. But that seems unlikely at this point. So that's the national scene. What about Texas? What's the outlook for Texas real estate in the latter half of 2024? Is it a smart time to buy right now? So Texas, along with Florida, saw a dip in unsold housing inventory this week. Fewer homes are available for sale than they were last week. And it seems like the inventory has hit its seasonal peak and is gradually starting to decline. However, with significant inventory growth earlier this year, the current slowdown could be a normal seasonal trend. But make no mistake, overall inventory has surged this year in the Lone Star State. In Texas, housing supply increased from 3.1 months in the second quarter of 2023 to 4.6 months in the second quarter of 2024, marking the highest inventory level in the state that we've seen in over 8 years. But despite this huge spike in supply, the median home price in Texas still grew, but only slightly, by 0.6% year over year to $345,000. And as of the end of July in 2024, Texas had about 158,000 homes on the market. It's a 22.2% increase compared to last year, and the average supply is about 4 months. Now, in the big markets in Texas, inventory has spiked considerably compared to last year. In Dallas, for example, active listings surged 44.7% with a 3.8 month supply. Houston, inventory climbed 42.5%, bringing this month of supply to 4.2. In San Antonio, listings increased 43.4% with a 5.2 month supply. And Austin had a smaller increase of 29.5% in listings with a 4.8 months of supply on the market. So, is it the right time to buy in Texas, or should you wait? Well, the first answer is it depends on your situation. You may have to buy, or the perfect house may come along that you want to jump on. If so, there are certainly some positives to this market if you're in a buying position. There's less competition, Because with fewer buyers, bidding wars are going to be much less frequent. You've got negotiation power. Right now, buyers may have more leverage in the slowing market, asking for things like seller concessions and reduced prices. Rates are starting to stabilize. So overall, rates are starting to level off at the end of this year, potentially drawing more buyers back into the market. And there are some regional differences. Dallas and Fort Worth and Austin may still be competitive compared to some of the smaller towns around the area. Right now, there's very strong economic growth. Texas has a strong job market that attracts new residents every single day, which is going to sustain demand. And new construction. Right now, there's more homes hitting the market in Texas than most other markets in the country, adding more benefit to potential buyers. So although right now it's not a clear-cut buyer's market, Texas is offering more opportunities for buyers than it has in many recent years. The market's balancing, giving buyers who've been waiting for a home a good shot at securing one, depending, of course, on the location and property type. But don't expect prices to fall dramatically anytime soon, even with this burst of high inventory and high rates. You see, prices have remained stable, and if rates fall further next spring, when more buyers may look to get back into the market, you could expect prices to start tipping up again. So while it's not 100% ideal right now, and you're still straining affordability, if you can, the best time to buy was still yesterday, but the second best time is today. Okay, next up, just a few stories from around the world of real estate that'll help you better navigate these commission changes. So, with the NAR commission lawsuit settlement requiring agents to have a signed buyer's representation agreement before home tours, Zillow has rolled out 24 state-specific versions of its touring agreement. Now, these agreements are covering about 80% of Zillow's premier agent real-time touring connections. And they are optional for agents, but will become automated for those who opt in. So buyers who request a tour with a premier agent using the agreement will need to sign a 7-day contract before touring the property. After the tour, they'll receive information on longer-term agreements detailing what to expect from their agent and how the agent's going to be compensated. Now, these state-specific agreements are available to Zillow Premier agents in 24 states, including Texas, California, and Florida. Now, agents in other states or without Premier status can still use Zillow's original agreement. And Zillow did initially face criticism in Virginia over compliance issue, but since then have adjusted the agreement to meet the state-specific legal requirements. Okay, next up, a recent article from Housing Wire highlighted some major shift in commissions that we need to pay attention to. So first off, the buzzword right now is commission compression. Agents across the country are seeing buy-side commissions shrink, even more than before the NAR settlement kicked in. Brian Husky, a broker in Montana, points out that commissions that used to hover around 5 to 6% are now sliding down to 4.5 to 5.5%. Meanwhile, a broker on the East Coast noticed that some of the weaker agents are starting to drop their fees to just get buyers to sign with them. And this is where things start to get a little tricky. You see, agents cutting commissions short-term might be sacrificing long-term success for everybody. This industry has never been a place where you can survive by just slashing prices. And with sales volume at 30-year lows, more and more agents are getting desperate and cutting fees just to win a deal. Now, here's the key takeaway. Those agents who demonstrate their value and give clients that wow factor are going to outlast those who focus solely on lowering costs. If you want to stick around, you need to focus on showing your clients that you're worth every penny they spend on you, whether it's better marketing, top-notch service, or negotiating skills. It's all about making sure your clients feel like they're getting the best bang for their buck and fully understand what it is that you're doing for them. Communication is always the key. Let's also talk about brokerage margins. We're not just talking about agents feeling the squeeze. Brokerages are also in a tight spot as well. Many of these firms operate on razor-thin margins, so even a slight dip in commission rates could push many of them into the red. A study from Account Tech found that if commissions per side drop 2%, around 80 of the brokerages in the country would become unprofitable. That's a pretty scary statistic. So the pressure's on for brokerages to either cut costs further, and let's be real, many of them have already done that, or increase production per agent. So basically, you got to do more with less. And there's no doubt we're going to see some consolidation in the market. Brokerages are going to have to get bigger and get more efficient to survive. Steve Murray from Realtors expects buyer broker commissions to drop by 30 to 40% over the next couple of years. It's going to hit a lot of firms really hard. So what's the move? For brokers, it's all about getting lean, driving up revenue without ballooning overhead, and where possible, leveraging other services like title and mortgage to offset the hit. And it wouldn't hurt to learn a new technology like maybe AI, one of my favorite subjects. to get lean and mean on processes and services. Now, on a positive note, the agents who excel on the listing side and continue to innovate are going to be fine. Sure, they'll have to hustle a little bit harder and be a little more efficient, but the good ones will always find a way to thrive in this environment. So now it's time to focus on your value proposition, get smart about your operations, and be ready to navigate these changes. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but for those who adapt, there are still plenty of opportunities to succeed. Okay, now for the main story. Now, August 17th has come and gone, and the way people buy and sell homes has forever changed. As a realtor, how do you adapt and thrive? Well, I'm going to break down the newest formula for success. Now, understand, much of these steps you have already or should have already been doing, with maybe a slight shift in focus or the way you communicate it. But if you haven't been doing it this way, then there's no time like the present. So let's break it all down. Here are the 10 steps to the perfect home buying process for your buyers. Step 1, find a buyer. Okay, this step is going to require its own segment in the coming weeks, and I promise I'm going to bring it to you, because finding the buyer is the hardest, most labor-intensive part of what our current market requires. So next week, I'll give you some strategies to help here. But for right now, we're just going to have to assume by some miracle that you found a buyer or they found you, just for the sake of time. Step 2, set up the buyer consultation. So you have to set up a time to meet with your buyer so they can see your face. In person is the best. If you got to do a Zoom or a FaceTime call, fine. Whatever you have to do so clear communication can be had. If they can't see your face, then you're going to be at a disadvantage. So get in front of them. You need to connect on a personal level, not just with a phone call. Make them feel like they're your number one priority, because they are. These days, transparency and communication are the most important things that buyers are looking for, especially in this ever-changing, complicated home buying process. So the first meeting is crucial in establishing your value. Step 3, establish their needs. Now that you're in front of them, it's time for you to put on your listener hat and establish your home buyers' wants and needs. Dive deep into what they're looking for in a home or a neighborhood. Get to know their timeline, motivation for buying, or which of these things is most important to them at that time. Take notes, ask questions, turn off your phone, and be engaged. This is where you figure out the most important things to them and adapt your presentation to match what they want and not just what you think they need. Number 4, establish your value. Post August 17th, this part is the most critical. It starts here, but it will be the theme of every other part of this process. Your number one job is to negotiate on their behalf to find them the most home for the least amount of money. And this is where you share that really big brain of yours. You want to say things like, based on what you've shared with me, I think this neighborhood would be best ideal for your family. Or, based on what you're sharing with me, I think this kind of home would suit your needs the best. This is really where it's the most important thing to be an expert in your area. When you can recall specific neighborhoods, specific builders, or areas that would suit your buyer's needs just off the top of your head, you come off as a true expert at your craft. You're a house hunting Jedi among mere mortals. So now that you've established their needs and your expertise, it's time for the next step. Number 5, explain the process. Be a teacher, not a teller. Now, this is the longest part of the process, but plays the biggest role in establishing your value. Your buyers might know how to browse Zillow, but they don't know the ins and outs of the buying process. That is where you come in. Break it down in simple ways that they can understand. Remember, it's their first time, or maybe their first time in the last 5 years. So what's the buyer's agent role? What do you do? Now, in the past, you could say something like, I'm going to be your guide through this wide world of real estate. Everything from property searches to negotiations, I've got you covered. But today is not like it was before. Now you have to be very specific and, unfortunately, very long-winded, just like this. So as your agent in the process, I'll handle the following things on your behalf. Property search and showings. Search properties through the local MLS. Arrange and conduct property showings. Highlight key features and potential issues during viewings. Market analysis and valuation. Analyze, compare properties to determine their fair market value. Provide insights on market trends and neighborhood dynamics. Offers and negotiations. Help draft offer letters. I'll lead negotiations for optimal terms and price. I'll review contracts and disclosures. I'll do transaction management. I'll coordinate with all parties involved, like the lender, the inspector, the appraiser, etc. I'm going to oversee contract terms and ensure that they're met. I'm going to attend closing and address any final details. I'll give you my expert guidance, explain the home buying process from start to finish, provide advice on specific ways to meet your goals in the current market, and offer insights on the resale potential for all properties. properties. Oh, and by the way, I also offer some additional services like relocation assistant. I can provide relocation packages for out-of-town buyers. I offer detailed information on neighborhoods and local amenities. I do post-purchase support. I provide lists of reputable contractors and repairs for renovations. I offer complimentary market analysis once a year for tax appeals and financial planning. I offer you enhanced property information as a whole. I pull detailed tax records on properties of interest. I provide property archive reports when requested. I do off-market property access. I reach out to owners of unlisted properties that may interest you as the buyer. I negotiate fees with for sale by owner sellers. I have specialized market research. I conduct in-depth analysis of market preferences for specific floor plans or areas. And I can provide detailed information on current issues like oil tanks, lead paint, or radon gas. That is a lot. But that is the point, because your fee is a lot and your time is valuable. And since the person in front of you might have to pay that fee, they need to know what they're getting for their money. Again, transparency and communication. And emphasize the negotiation piece. Break down the math for them. Your job is to figure out how to bridge the gap between how much cash they will need for the transaction and how much they actually have for the transaction, using seller concession, price reductions, repair amendments, etc., etc. Again, show your brain and flex your knowledge. Remember, your job is to also retain this client and their network of friends and family so they think of you the next time there's a decision to buy or sell a home. So the more you can line out all the things that you can do for them, especially after the purchase, then you can demonstrate an even higher level of value that you bring to this transaction. And oh, by the way, you also need to let them know what the seller's agent role in this process is. Especially in this new environment, it's critical to remind your buyers that the seller's agent is not on their side. They're working to get the most money for their seller. So if they think that it might be a cheaper option just to reach out to the agent that's listing the property, then they must understand that that person is not in their corner, but you are. The selling agent is trying to sell the home for the most amount of money and net their clients the most cash at the end of the transaction. So they are not your buyer's friend. So they can call the selling agent to check out the property, but as the old saying goes, buyer beware. All right, step number 6, dive into the fees. Do not dodge them. So it's time to talk money. Don't shy away from it. Tackle it head on. Your clients need to understand the costs involved in buying a home, including your fee. Start with the upfront costs. Walk them through everything from earnest money to inspections to appraisals. Then talk about the fees paid at closing, taxes, insurance, lender fees, their down payment, etc. And of course, your fee. And again, you have to address this head on. Don't hide from it. Don't gloss over it. After all, you are a professional and you do this every day, so it's no big deal. It's just part of the process. And it is very critical that you control the conversation on this. Don't let someone else bring this up to your buyers if you haven't addressed it. If they hear it first from someone else after they met you, then they lose trust and confidence in you and your service. So just explain to them what your fee is and how it can be paid. You could say something like this: in order for me to do all these things that I've laid out for you and to have the advantage of my experience in negotiating the best deal for you, we have to sign an agreement to work together. By the way, do you know how it is that I get paid? Well, I make a portion of the sales price when you purchase a house, and I can get paid one of 3 ways. It can be negotiated that the seller will pay my fee in full. It can be negotiated that the seller will pay a portion of my fee and you'll make up the difference, or you might have to pay all of my compensation if the seller does not agree to. But oh, by the way, you're going to know all of this before we even walk in to see a property. Here's what my standard fee is. And now the negotiation is just about who pays it. Very straightforward, very simple. And if your client's worried about affording your fee, then present them with options: a reduced menu of services, a flat fee, or even recommend that they explore other agents, which, if you do your job well, will likely bring them back to you anyway when they realize your value compared to everyone else that they talk to. So then we get to important number 7. Get that buyer's rep agreement signed. You've laid it all out, and now it's time to seal the deal. Get the buyer's rep agreement signed, and if they're hesitant, then give them some time to talk it over. But set another meeting right then. Never leave the house without a signed agreement or a follow-up appointment. It's a simple rule of sales. Number 8, get them pre-approved. Connect your buyers with a lender you trust. They need someone who's going to reinforce all the important points that you've discussed and help them secure the best possible deal. Think of your lender partner as Robin to your Batman. You need them to get this job done. And right now, it's more critical than ever to have someone on your team who can help structure the best and most affordable way to get your clients across the finish line. And oh, by the way, if you need someone to ride shotgun in your Batmobile, give me a call. I'm more than happy to team up. Step number 9, the fun part, find the property and negotiate. This is the part where you really get to flex those brain muscles. When your buyers find a home that they love, it's time to dig into the seller situation. Fish for information. Call that agent. What's the seller's motivation? Price is just one piece of the puzzle. Find out their timeline, what they need, and how flexible they are on concessions. You got to negotiate like a pro. Start high and ask for everything. Remember, negotiation is an art form and you are the artist. Because once you got that deal under contract, you and your buyer are in the driver's seat at that point because you can always renegotiate after the inspection. And finally, step number 10. Close the deal and earn that future business. It's closing time, so make sure that your buyers feel like they got the best deal ever because they did, thanks to you. Celebrate the win. Remind them of everything that you did to make the process smooth and successful. Make them feel special on closing day because you want to build that long-term value. You got to stay in touch. Offer services like tax exemption reminders, contractor referrals, and regular market updates because you're not just closing one deal, you're securing a client for the rest of their life. Remember, guys, every transaction is an opportunity to create more business. Use each win to build a network of referrals and keep showing your value long after the deal's done. In this new era of commissions, it's all about being proactive, transparent, and most importantly, invaluable to your clients. Well, my friends, this one took a while. We got it out late and it was long, but hey, I hope it helped. I'm here working hard each week to try to add value to your business, and I hope I accomplished that goal today. Please tune into my next episode as economist Vance Ginn and I dive deep into the affordable housing crisis in the United States and how the government is not exactly helping it out. It was a really great episode, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Until next time, be great humans. Just keep grinding. Life is what you make it. So make it great. See you later.